A retired U.S. Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens has called for the repeal of the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which gives Americans the right to keep and bear firearms. The days after the mass protests nationwide demanding stronger gun control, Stevens is one of the highest-profile legal figures in the United States to join the national debate on school shootings and gun violence and also firearm ownership in the United States. The British Prime Minister Theresa May has said that 25 nations have now moved to expel Russian diplomats over Moscow's suspected involvement in the poisoning of a former Russian spy and also his daughter in England. That the governments across Europe, the United States and elsewhere have announced plans to expel a total of more than 100 Russian diplomats. NATO has expelled 7 diplomats from Russia's mission to the alliance and also blocked the appointment of 3 others over the nerve agent attack in Britain this month. Now, Jens Stoltenberg has said that he had also cut the maximum size of the Russian mission to about 20 people from 30 in the latest move by the alliance to reduce what was once one of the biggest national delegations at NATO. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has warned United Kingdom, saying that Russia will not tolerate London's boorish anti-Russian behaviour. Lavrov also said that Russia's response to the European nations expelling its diplomats will not be slow. Russia's ambassador to Germany has condemned Berlin's decision to expel 4 Russian diplomats over Moscow's suspected involvement in the poisoning of former Russian double agent Sergei Skripal in Britain. Now, Ambassador Sergei Nechayev has said that the act was unfriendly and that the embassy had protested against it very vehemently. Former U.S. National Security Agency's whistleblower Edward Snowden has slammed Facebook, calling it a surveillance company. He's also questioned Facebook's credentials as a social media networking site, saying that Facebook makes money by exploiting and selling intimate and personal details of millions of people worldwide. The Cambridge Analytica's whistleblower Christopher Wiley has said that Canadian company Aggregation worked on software called REPEALING, which was used to identify the Republican voters ahead of the 2016 U.S. presidential elections. The REPEALING was the name that was given to the tool that let a campaign manage its voter database and also target specific voters, conduct canvassing, manage fundraising and also carry out surveys. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has vowed to punish those responsible for the deadly shopping mall fire in Siberia, talking to a group of Kemerovo residents after visiting the scene of the fatal blaze. Putin promised a complete investigation that would follow the chain of events and also find everyone involved in what he has called as complete criminal negligence leading to the deaths. Russian Emergency Situation Minister Vladimir Puchkov has informed the search and rescue operation in a shopping mall in Siberia's Kemerovo has come to an end. The fire at the Winter Cherry shopping centre had killed as many as 64 people, 41 of whom were children. And many local residents do not believe the official death toll of 64 and also they suspect the authorities of trying to hide the real number of casualties in the incident. The Russian mourners laid flowers and also lit candles at a memorial near the Kremlin honouring about 64 people who were killed in a fatal shopping mall fire in Siberia. Locals laid red carnations and also soft toys in front of a black banner. People in white raincoats handed out flowers to people walking towards the memorial to pay their respects to the victims. Now, the event that was meant to pay homage to Siberia's fire victims turned into a protest after mourners demanded answers from authorities over the fire tragedy. The protesters also raised anti-Putin slogans as well, and thousands of people, including opposition leader Alexei Navalny, gathered on Moscow's Pushkinskaya Square to honor the memory of the 64 victims. Russia honored the memory of the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin, who had met a tragic death 50 years ago. Gagarin, who was just 27 years old when he completed humankind's first orbit around planet Earth in 1961. Now, on his return to the ground, Gagarin had come back to international fame and was hailed by the Soviet leadership as a hero. The Bolivian President Evo Morales has returned to Bolivia from The Hague, where he had been attending arguments at the International Court of Justice over Bolivia's sea access claim against Chile. Now, Morales has said that he and his cabinet would be watching the final day of arguments very closely. Bolivia and Chile are in fact facing off at the International Court of Justice this month in a dispute about access to the Pacific Ocean. The Chilean foreign minister has accused the Bolivian President Evo Morales of exploiting their border dispute at a United Nations court to drum up support at home for his re-election. Bolivia and Chile are facing off at the International Court of Justice about the disputed access to the Pacific Ocean, and both politicians have attended hearings at The Hague. Peru's new president, Martin Vizcarra, has got to work just days after his swearing in with a visit to flood victims in northern Peru, as well as an elementary school in the capital in Lima. Since serving as the country's ambassador to Canada for the past 6 months, Vizcarra has largely steered clear of Kuczynski's troubles, which have culminated with vote-buying allegations. Now, Peru's police has seized half a ton of cocaine that was detained for the United States, according to Peru's Interior Ministry. The drugs were found in a water truck inside a warehouse south of Lima. Now, 2 suspects were arrested in Lima and 3 more detained in the central city of Huancayo. Now, Ecuador's Interior Minister Cesar Navas has said that 2 journalists and also their drivers have been kidnapped near the country's border with Colombia, and authorities say that they are in contact with the alleged perpetrators and that all 3 of those who were kidnapped are believed to be okay. The European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini has met with Siberian President in Belgrade and has urged for calm and dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo. The tensions arose between Serbia and Kosovo after Kosovo police had briefly detained a Serbian police official in the northern town of Mitrovica, which lies in a volatile and mainly minority Serb pocket of Kosovo. The party representing Kosovo's Serb minority withdrew from the government coalition, protesting at what it has called as attacks on the people and representatives of Serbia in Kosovo. Just a day earlier, the police had fired tear gas at nationalist Serb protesters and also briefly detained a Serbian official. The Serb minority party Serb list held 4 ministerial positions, including that of Deputy Prime Minister. The Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi has assured Turkey that its armed forces will prevent the Kurdish militants based in northern Iraq from staging cross-border attacks against Ankara. The Abadi's pledge came during a phone call with the Turkish Prime Minister Binali Yildirim. Earlier, Turkey had threatened to intervene directly if the Iraqi operation against the Kurds based in the Sinjar region failed to get the results. Now, hundreds of buses prepared to move rebels and also their families from eastern Ghouta to Idlib after a deal with the Syrian government forces. The evacuations come following a deal with rebels to surrender the enclave near Damascus to the Syrian government. Meanwhile, the third rebel group, Jaish al-Islam, is holding talks with Russia over the withdrawal from Douma. Apple has rolled out a new iPad that works with its Apple Pencil and is aimed at grabbing more of the US education market, but did not cut the price of the tablet despite fierce competition from cheaper laptops. Now, the device will have a more powerful computing chip and also extensive new software features that are aimed at teachers and students. Now, California's Attorney General will investigate the recent killings of an unarmed black man in a barrage of police gunfire that sparked protests after videos of the incident were released. Attorney General Xavier Becerra has said that the state investigators will review the Sacramento Police Department's procedures and also practices in the investigation of Stephon Clark's shooting. The senior North and South Korean parliamentarians shook hands and shared Swiss wine in a rare gesture of friendship, suggesting relations between their two countries are thawing. The two senior officials were in fact attending the annual assembly in Geneva of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. The lost for almost about 300 years, a mass by Italian composer Giovanni Pergolesi is proving to be extremely popular with audiences across Europe after being rediscovered by researchers. Now, Pergolesi, who died of tuberculosis at the age of 26, is best known for his solemn and sacred music. The U.S. author Jacqueline Utzon has been conferred with the prestigious 2018 Astrid Lindgren Memorial Award. The award was established by the Swedish government in the year 2002 when Lindgren died at the age of 94 and is the world's largest children's and young people's literary award with an annual prize of 5 million Swedish kronor. An Egyptian woman carried her sick husband on her back down a narrow flight of stairs as the pair headed to a polling station to cast their vote in Egypt's presidential elections. The voting will end today. The arrested Catalan leader Carles Puigdemont lawyers met him at a local German prison where he is presently being held after his arrest shortly after entering into Germany. The lawyers for the imprisoned former Catalan president Carles Puigdemont have said that their client was determined not to give up and had full faith in the German justice system. The Puigdemont on Monday had appeared before a regional court in the northern German region which extended his detention pending a decision on extradition to Spain. The hundreds of protesters made their way to Barcelona's Saints station to protest against the imprisonment of Catalan separatist leaders and also the arrest of former Catalan President Carles Puigdemont in Germany. But the Catalan riot police blocked the entrances to the station to prevent the protesters from entering the station and invading the tracks as they have managed to do in a previous demonstration at Sants train station. Dozens of taxi drivers from Belgium, France, Britain gathered outside the European institutions in Brussels to demand that the European Commission tackle what they say is unfair competition from Uber and other ride-hailing apps. The Chinese Premier Li Keqiang has urged the United States Congress to play a positive and also a constructive role in maintaining the political foundation and public support of the Sino-US relations together with China. Li has said that China will work towards the direction of solving problems through negotiations, but is also prepared to deal with any circumstance. Brazil's federal government has ordered the army to take command of Rio de Janeiro's security in a bid to curb violence driven by drug gangs. Armored vehicles patrolled city streets and also soldiers stopped Rio residents at checkpoints to inspect identification documents and also search bags and vehicles since the security takeover began in mid-February. The 70-year-old former dean of Michigan State University, William Strampel, who had supervised Larry Nassar, the man at the center of the USA gymnastics sex abuse scandal, was himself charged with criminal sexual conduct involving medical school students. A medical student at the school had accused Strampel of forcible sexual contact. The prosecutors said that other students also accused Trumpel of various incidents of sexual misconduct. The body of the French policeman who died from gunshot wounds after voluntarily taking the place of a female hostage during a supermarket siege was taken in Paris on Tuesday. The French National Assembly observed the minute's silence in the policeman's memory and that of the 3 other victims. France will be paying a national tribute to the slain policeman who once had served in Iraq as well. The German Environmental Minister Svenja Schulz has said that driverless technology should not be abandoned after Uber crash in the United States. The White House has defended the United States government, asking people whether they are citizens in the 2020 census, arguing that it would actually help strengthen the Voting Rights Act. The U.S. Commerce Department, which runs the Census Bureau, announced that Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross had decided to include the citizenship question for better enforcement of the Voting Rights Act. Alright, let's move on to some news from India, where Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti wooed travel agents to the valley, saying that the state has the best of every natural and man-made resource. The Mufti made the comments while addressing the 64th annual convention of the Travel Agents Association of India in the city of Srinagar. The event, which aimed at boosting tourism in the province, was held in the state after 30 years. India's Election Commission has ordered for a probe after a few news channels announced the poll dates of Karnataka elections before it was announced by the Chief Election Commissioner. Now, the controversy erupted after BJP's IT cell chief Amit Malviya tweeted the dates of the assembly elections. Malviya later tweeted saying that he was merely quoting a news channel and then went on to delete his earlier tweet. The central government has given a written statement in the parliament saying that there is no proposal to scrap Article 370. Now, the contentious provision gives special status to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Scrapping Article 370 forms part of the BJP's poll manifesto. Now, Pakistan's High Commissioner to India, Suhail Mahmood, hoped for improved and strong relations with India after he visited Ajmer Sharif Shrine in Rajasthan. The elaborate security arrangements were made in and around the shrine, keeping in view the high-profile visit. A group of regional musicians also gave an enchanting performance in the presence of Mahmood. The Indian Coast Guard has decommissioned its Bhikaji Kama ship, which saved over 80 lives during its 20-year tenure. The surveillance ship played a pivotal role in apprehending about 10 foreign fishing vessels and evacuated 137 personnel during a tsunami relief operation. The equipment of the ship will now be stored for utilization in other vessels. The Australian coach Darren Lehmann will continue in his position after a Cricket Australia probe found no involvement of the former World Cup winner in the ball tampering saga. Now, Cricket Australia has, however, confirmed that further sanctions will be imposed on the guilty trio for hurting Australia's national integrity. The cricket's governing body, the ICC, has said that it will not be looking into claims of Australian players indulging in ball tampering during last season's Ashes win over England. Despite recent accusations by former English cricketers, ICC has clarified that the time limit to report any such offence has clearly passed. A Zimbabwean official has been suspended from all cricket activities for about 20 years by the ICC for attempting to influence an international match. Rajan Nair, a member of the Harare Cricket Association, has approached Zimbabwe captain Graham Kremer with an offer of about $30,000 to engage in corruption in October.